Welcome to A.U.M. Ask Us Marketing. I'm your host, Kalli Fedusenko. I'm the founder of Savvy Advisor Marketing, a digital marketing agency developed to build relationships between financial advisors and their target audience, using data to create websites, online content, and ads. We build relationships first and we grow numbers second. And if that's an approach that resonates with you, then you can click here to learn more about us. Our episode today is brought to you by the Financial Planning Association, otherwise known as the FPA. The FPA is a great resource center providing education, support, and networking opportunities for financial advisors like you. You know, a brand isn't built overnight, and it certainly isn't built alone. This is part one of a special two-part series on how Mitlin built a brand that clients know, trust, and talk about. Larry's going to share the real story behind the brand evolution from the earliest ideas to today's high visibility presence. If you've ever wondered how long it really takes to build a strong financial brand or how to know if it's working, then this is your behind the scenes look. Please join with me, Larry Sprung.
Hey,
Hi,
Kalli, how are
Larry.
you? Hi,
I'm doing great. How are you on this Monday?
I am great. Thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited for the conversation.
I am very excited because I see Mitlin everywhere. Actually, I see you everywhere. In my LinkedIn feed, I'm like, oh, there's Larry. There's Larry.
I get around. Yes, I do.
Yes. And so today we get to hear how that happened, which is pretty exciting. Um, let's talk about, though, when you started. Like, what was the original vision? And what was like some of the first things that you did? And how did that evolve?
Yeah, so I would say the original vision is really nothing what it's like today. I mean, when I started, it was literally just me. Just over 20 years ago, we celebrated our 20th anniversary back in 2024,
Mm,
and it was literally just me when I started, and really didn't have a vision. Really was just looking at building and working with families, and really the impetus for us starting an independent practice was I had worked with some larger, more institutionalized firms like Bank of America, Merrill, Solomon Smith Barney. And, I just got the sense that a lot of times they were talking about doing the right thing, best interests of the families, but a lot of times it boiled down to, how much revenue were you generating? And that's really not the way I operated. I
yeah.
really wanted to build a family first environment where we basically just took care of the families and helped them solve the problems and challenges that they were facing,
Mm,
and eventually felt the revenue would come. And that's the way we started, that's the way we built, and we're still that today. We're a family first. One of our core values is
yeah.
client equals family equals team. We're all part of that big family,
Mm.
and that's something we strive for every day.
Yeah. So I love that vision first and revenue will follow.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Similar to what you said in the opening, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I can't quote it, but it was almost identical.
Yep. Relationships first, numbers second.
Correct. There you go. So
Yeah.
I think that nails it right on the head.
So you started, you had this vision, and then revenue will come. What in those early days, what was your marketing like?
Yeah, I would say it was somewhat non-existent. I
Yeah.
mean, it really just was very referral oriented,
Mm,
where I hear a lot of people talking about that today. And I think there's some data out there that shows that referrals are the number one
mhm.
generator for new business for financial advisors. And I'm not going to argue the studies, but I have a feeling, and I feel like, at least from our own practice, that tide is starting to turn, in
Mm,
terms of, not that we're not getting as many, but I
Mhm.
feel like we're getting equally as many from other channels. And I
Mm.
think there's going to come a point where, social media and being able to put out a brand and getting people to
Mhm.
know, like, and trust you in advance of them calling or looking to work with you is going to take over leadership to some degree, as a big driver of potential new business for financial advisors.
Yeah, I think it was Kitches who released something that was like, "Yeah, referrals are number 1, but that's only because people aren't doing anything else." So, of course, they're number 1, right?
Right. If
But that's
you survey everybody who's just getting business through referrals, then of course that's going to be number one. If you
right.
survey a lot of firms like ours, it may or may not be number one. I think that would lose some of its standing.
Yes, exactly. Um, so you started with referrals. What was one of the first things you did outside of referrals? And more than that, what made you comfortable investing in that, not knowing what the outcome would be?
So I would say there was a huge inflection point for us, or for me, I should say, back in like 2017, 18-ish.
Mhm.
That's when Denise, my wife, who's now the director of marketing, started working in the business part time. She had her own business for a while, and then she started working for us part time. And I was very hesitant for a long time sharing a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
family, personal, things like that.
Yep.
And she was the one that really started pushing me. She's like, you got to start sharing this stuff. And I'm like, people don't want to know when I'm on vacation or when I'm doing this, and
Right.
she's like, they do.
Yeah.
So the big test was in 2019. My youngest son was getting bar mitzvahed, and we were taking a trip to South Africa.
Mm.
And she convinced me. She said, "Let's give it a test and let's post while we're away at South Africa, and
Mhm.
let's kind of post our journey and let's see kind of what the response
Yeah.
is." And I was like, okay, because previously I would have said nobody wants to know that stuff.
Right.
And we started posting every day. And I ended up getting an email from a woman that we had worked with for a very long time. And she sent me an email saying that she's been following me on this entire trip, the entire journey. She
Mm.
unfortunately had COPD. So
Mhm.
she was on oxygen, couldn't travel very far. And on her bucket list was
South
to go to South
Africa.
Africa on safari. And
Aw.
she thanked me for sharing the entire journey. She was logging in every day to see what we posted new because she
Yeah.
felt like she went on our journey with us.
Right.
And that right there was like what signed and sealed and delivered it for me and said, you know what? People
Yeah.
do care.
Yeah.
And, to this day, we now have folks, I've had folks who aren't big social media people,
Mhm.
who have told me they log on to Facebook like once a week to see what's going on with me and my family.
Yeah.
So, that was really the turning point for us. And that
Mhm.
was when we made the decision also to start leaning in, to social media in general and making that investment because I think that story and that email said a lot about that sharing experience.
Right. Yeah. And that's something I get pushback a lot from advisors, especially when we first start working together. Um, is this like, well, people don't want to know, or I don't want people to know I'm on vacation because then they're gonna think that's how I'm spending their money. Um, but it's yeah,
It's the opposite.
yep.
People, especially the families we work with, the families we serve, they love that we're
Mhm.
family people, Denise and I. I mean, we had an advisory council meeting a couple of months ago, and one of the members of the council said she started working with us merely because, or one of the main reasons was, she said she's watched me and followed me and Denise for many years, and she's
Mhm.
like, if you could raise two great kids like you've done, you have to be a good steward for my money.
Aw,
And so it does matter. It takes time, but I
right.
think that it's important to put that out there.
Yes. And that what a great compliment to receive, right?
Yes, it was. It was very humbling, or the advisory council. That's something I would highly recommend to everybody as well. If you've never done that, it's eye-opening, humbling, and at the same time, there's so much great information and feedback that comes from it.
Yeah.
That's super, super helpful.
I do have to share this comment that Alexandra just put for my slip there when I said workout. I'm guessing Tyrone Ross is an advisor, but she says he does great Twitter videos with workouts. So Larry, maybe you
Love
could.
Tyrone. I love Tyrone. He puts out some workouts. He runs a lot, so
Yeah.
he's a runner. I am not, but he's a great individual, and he and I are sometimes follow each other after on media appearances. So I get to see him every so often.
Well, I can assure everyone watching, you will never see me doing a workout video on my live stream.
I did get my sons and I did get a photo during a workout while posing with weights during COVID, because
Yeah.
they were writing a story about how people were working out at home as a family. So
Mm,
that's probably the closest I've done, and maybe a few Peloton shots
right.
during some milestone rides, but that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, okay. So this strong brands that you've got, what has been the most effective in getting Mitlin noticed?
Yeah, so I think it's been a combination of a number of things. I mean, I think the other inflection point which we hadn't talked about is
Mhm.
when we started leaning into this joy
Mm,
factor that we've found. And
yeah.
really we started that right around the time of the podcast. We
Mm,
needed, well, Denise wanted to have a signature question that we asked each of our guests at the podcast, and I asked her to come up with something, and she came up with, "What did you do today that brought you joy?"
mm,
And that question has really revolutionized and changed our practice, because I put it on a shirt.
mhm,
And really, when we knew we were onto something was when I was online with the family in Disney for Rise of the Resistance,
mhm.
and a Disney cast member looked me straight in the eye and said, "I ate a bag of Hershey Kisses." And I looked at her.
You're like, okay.
I looked at my son. I'm like, "What the hell is she talking about?" And my son looks at me and goes, "Hey, dumbass, she's answering the question to your
Yeah.
shirt." And I was like, "Oh." And then I started noticing and paying attention. People in airports, coffee shops, they would look at the shirt.
Mm.
People would take pictures of it. People would
Oh,
just blurt out what they did today that brought them joy. So we really knew that we were on to something. And
yeah.
then with the families we serve, I started getting emails back where they were writing, joy in capital letters, or a
Mm,
text message that they're on a hike and this is where they find their joy. So that really revolutionized and changed, where we were looking to go from a marketing perspective.
yeah.
And that has really catapulted us. And, to answer your question directly,
Yeah.
I really can't. And I think most marketing people can't do
Mhm.
this unless you're doing one thing, right? If
Right.
you're only doing one thing, then you could kind of measure what the success of that one thing is. But
Mhm.
when you have multiple channels that you're working on, so for example, we have the podcast, we
Yeah.
have a book, I'm on media, I do
Mm,
media appearances, we're active on social media. When you have all those things, at times it's hard to tell what was the one thing that drove
right.
somebody over the edge to contact you. And that's a little bit of a blurry line.
Mhm.
So I can't really attribute it to one thing. I think it's a combination of several of those things. And I'm not saying that, for advisors listening to this, go out and do all those things tomorrow, but you want
Mhm.
to build that out strategically, and they all support each other, right? If
Mm,
somebody hears me on the podcast or a podcast, maybe they go buy the book, or they read one of my blogs, or they connect with me on social, or vice versa, or
right.
reverse. So they all support each other. And the ultimate goal is, to weed out those that are not a good fit for us
Yes.
and attract those that are, so that when they're, I kind of joke around and say, but like when they're in the shower in the morning and all of a
Mhm.
sudden this, awe comes over them that they're not prepared for retirement, and they walk out of the
Mm,
shower and they're like, you know what? I really have to get a retirement plan. I've been seeing Larry around. It looks
mhm.
like he does. Let me reach out to him. So you want to be there, ready and available when they're in that decision making process, so that you've been in front of them and they feel comfortable reaching out to you.
Yes, yes, staying top of mind.
Yes.
And you guys have clearly figured it out. It seems to be working for you. How much time are you, like, as the advisor, how much time are you investing in this versus delegating to your team?
So I think delegation is key, and
Mm.
I think I can do the things that we're doing, but I
Mhm.
think my time is better served in other areas. So as we learn, we kind of bring in other partners to help manage that. Denise is managing part of it. We have a podcast company. We have
Mm.
a PR company for getting PR, experiences through the
Yeah.
media and print. So we have relationships, and delegation is key, which
Mm.
allows me to go on the media appearance,
Mhm.
go as guests on podcasts, take photos and videos for social media. So I'm a big fan of delegating, and
Yeah.
you have to be willing and able to do that. Once you get a point where you've kind of figured out what you're doing with that one marketing funnel, if you will, and
Mhm.
then outsource, delegate, and then move on to that next thing, and keep reiterating that way, I think is vital.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm gonna put an overlay of the chat right now because here we go. I was like, it's blowing up a little bit with the Mitlin praises here.
That's great. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
um, we've got a quote from of Denise, which, by the way, for those joining us, Denise is going to be joining us next week, and she's going to talk a little bit more about the behind the scenes execution, whereas this episode is more about the vision and you as the lead of Mitlin. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a really good pairing to see. Okay, this is the direction. Then she's going to say, "This is how what we did to get there."
And if you follow me, you know that I just do what I'm told. Like literally, my clothes get picked out for me for media appearances. I don't want to think about that. And
Uh-huh.
I'm told, hey, we have to film a video on this, so we film a video on that. And I think it's key and important to have somebody who's ready to execute that stuff.
Right. Smart man.
Yes.
um, all right. So you lean into the delegating, which I'm going to assume that opens up a lot more ability for you to balance between the client work and the brand or the branding. Um, and so I think that's a key. Was there something that made it easier for you to delegate? Because that's something else I see, not just with advisors. I mean, I think it's any business owner.
Hmm.
It's your baby, and it can be difficult to let go of areas. Um, was there a time where you're like, okay, I have to let go of this? And how did you overcome that, like, I don't know, protectiveness?
Yeah, I think I think there were a number of factors that led me down that path. And ultimately, you come to the realization that if you want to grow, you're going to have to delegate. So,
Mhm.
right now, we grew from where I talked to you about when we started, where it was just me. Now we're a team of six. Rely heavily on my associate wealth advisor who's managing a lot of the relationships. We're
Yeah.
constantly looking for new members of the team because
Mhm.
I'm trying to get down and lessen my client interaction,
Mm.
being as the primary,
Yeah.
in terms of, and then focusing on the vision and the growth of the firm.
Mhm.
So that's something that's important. But I think it really was about 5 years ago or so that I came to the realization finally, and we've heard it for a long time, and reading some excellent books like 10x is easier than 2x, and
Mm.
reading Gino Wickman's Traction and EOS,
Yes.
and realizing that you're the roadblock to yourself. So these are things
Mm.
that you have to change in order to grow. So it's something that you have to be willing to do. Is everybody going to do it exactly the same way as you? No.
Right.
But you also have to look at it. I think some of the pundits, and I can't remember exactly
Mhm.
who said this, but if you're going to delegate it, they have to do it at least 80% as well as you. And if they did it 80% as well
Mm.
as you, that's probably as good as you need to get it done.
Mhm.
And then you
Mhm.
can, train them, educate them, and then, account for the other 20% over time. But if they can do 80% of it, that's going to be a home run as you hand that off. So
Mm.
that's something I've been leaning into and have been looking at things probably on a quarterly or semi-annual basis, looking at
Yeah.
things that I'm doing and trying to at least delegate out one of those things if I can.
Right. Yes. And speaking of traction, hold on. For those joining, this is what the book looks like.
Yes. Yes.
See if I can get in there. Available on Amazon.
It's a great one. It's anybody. I think that's a must read for anybody who runs a business. I really do. It really
Yes.
breaks things down easily and succinctly, and you can implement it and make major changes with some minor adjustments to your business.
Yeah. And it gives a process, I think, for setting up a system. And you
Mhm.
don't have to stick to it, exactly as they're saying it, but it at least gives you somewhere to start, which I think is great. Uh, and it talks about the marketing piece, right?
Yes.
Um, and I think it talks about like tracking which things, but as you said, it's so hard to track, which items are helping with the growth.
Yeah, I mean, we have 5 metrics that we track, and probably the hardest one for us to track is that how that marketing is really,
Hmm.
influencing the practice. But I guess at the end of the day, if the marketing is doing what it should be doing, our other factors like our net new asset growth,
Yeah.
our number of prospect meetings we've held, the
Mm.
pipeline that we have, all those things are positive, then that
Mhm.
means that the marketing is working. But it's hard to find that one metric that is going
Yes.
to, outline that.
Right. Agree 100% there. Um, all right. You started investing in the marketing. You came up with the joy. How long, like when you wore that shirt and somebody was like, I ate 5 Hershey Kisses or whatever they said.
A whole bag.
Oh my gosh.
A whole bag. Yeah.
Oh, that makes me feel sick. How long between then did you and seeing the branding affect your ROI? How long of a time frame was that? Because that's something else I think is a struggle. I've seen it take a long period of time and it can be hard to stick with it. And I
Yeah.
think stories like yours, where people have had this success and they can share, well, it took this much time, helps other people stick with it.
Hmm.
So, how long would you say it took between that first marker and then seeing the numbers grow?
Yeah, so I would say we saw interest immediately. People
Mm.
were drawn to this concept of joy. They were replying back using our
Mm.
own kind of words. So it resonated right away. And then we started seeing a pickup, and, it's just starting to steamroll. And then it's like that snowball that's going down the hill and just getting bigger and bigger.
Mhm.
Um, and that's where we're at. So just to kind of give you an idea, we basically launched the podcast in October of 2020. So we're about 4.5 years in right now.
Mm.
And at the same time, we had the question, what did you do today that brought you joy? We
Yeah.
started really leaning into that. And today, we basically almost 5x'd the business in
Mm.
terms of assets under management over that 4.5 year period. So
Mm.
we've seen some significant growth. Now, is everything attributable to that? No, but
Right.
I will tell you, we've had a lot different time before, from before to now. We have people coming in for meetings, and where when I first got into the business 20 years ago, you used to have to meet with people 3, 4, 5 times
Mhm.
before you figured out if it was a good fit and move forward.
Mhm.
Whereas today, we have people coming in the first meeting, and
Mhm.
and they're ready to go. They're ready to work with us because they
Mm.
already know, like, and trust us from what
Mhm.
we're doing online. So, I don't know if that's a long period of time for
Right.
most. If you would ask me 4.5, 5 years ago, if
Yeah.
5 years was a long time, I probably would have said yes. But we saw it, taking shape. We saw people
Yes.
really attracted to it. So we stuck with it, kept leaning in and doubling down in those areas, and it
Mhm.
certainly paid off in those numbers. And
Mm.
I could say with relative certainty that that would not have happened had we not done what we did over that 4.5 year period. So
Right.
I think that that was really directly responsible for a lot of that growth,
Okay.
if not all.
Right. Yeah. So 4 to 5 years. Yeah. And in the beginning it can be a struggle, but just like you said, I think momentum keeps you going. So having people engage with the joy part is like, okay, there's something here. And then you can build on that. I think for someone to stick with it, there has to be at least some sort of engagement. Otherwise, yeah, it's really hard to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, when you have people, tagging you on different social media platforms saying, "Hey, this brought me a lot of joy today," and then they
Hmm.
tag me because of that, that means a lot. I mean, that
Yeah.
means that what we're doing is being heard and it's being recognized, and it's impacting lives. So, whether they're working with us today or not,
Yeah.
again, the goal isn't to try to convince somebody that they need to work with us right here in this moment. The whole idea
Hmm.
is to be out there, sharing information, sharing, building a relationship with them. So when they're at a point that they need to make a decision, hopefully we're top of mind and we're one of those first people that they call for help.
Yes. Yes. Relationships first, numbers second.
There you go.
uh, what do you see next for Mitlin's brand presence? And what would you do differently if you started over?
Yeah, I'll answer the second one first. I mean, that's
Yeah.
always a tough question, right? Especially, I think it's especially tough for me to answer what would I do differently if I
Hmm.
were able to do it over, because a lot of the things I'm doing today were not even available when I first got in the business. So I don't know that I would have done anything different. I mean, the only thing I could say is maybe I would have started leaning into those uh, personal stories
Mm.
and personal information a little bit earlier than I did.
Mhm.
But I couldn't have done that when I first, started the practice, because these social media channels didn't even exist at the time,
Right.
in their current form. So
Yeah.
it wasn't even possible. So and I'm a big believer in things are meant to be and they'll
Mhm.
happen in their due time. And I try to subscribe and really lean into that. So I don't know that I would have done much differently
Yeah.
than we did. But I will say what's up next for us is we're always looking for and actively seeking other advisors that want to lead
Mm.
with joy. Um,
Mhm.
and that's something we're always looking to add to our practice. And one of the things that we are going to be doing to
Yeah.
help others who may be interested in joining our practice, or if they
Mhm.
just want to lead with joy themselves, is we're going to be having a webinar on how to do that, how leading
Mm.
with joy has transformed our practice, and how we've done that, and kind of take the curtain down to show them how that's been done, so
Yeah.
that hopefully they can use that in their own practice. So we've created a website called joyfuladvisor.com. And if advisors go there, put their name and email address in, they could be put on the wait list for when the webinar releases. It's going to be free. We're going to give it away. And if they have an interest in leading in a joyful manner, that's where I would go. And we're going to share all these secrets down to how we've done what we've done over the last, 4 to 5 years.
That's amazing. Did you say joyful advisors or advisor?
Joyfuladvisor.com.
That's why it didn't work. I'm gonna share the site as soon as it loads here.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're excited to do that and share that, because again, I think that it's really resonated with with a lot of people, and people have really enjoyed it.
Let's see. I think they would click on where do they? Oh, here we go.
Right there. Yep. Just
Right
email,
here.
first name.
If you
Yep.
want to join
The
the
wait list.
yes, and I am going to change our QR code. If you are joining us, you can scan it up above.
Thank you.
And scroll down to the bottom of the page if you'd like to join the waitlist for this webinar. Will the webinar be live or recorded?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
You can ask Denise that next week. I think we may do it live and have it recorded as well, but she can give you the specifics on next week. So if you're interested, if it'll be live or recorded, stay tuned next Monday.
Perfect. And let's see if I can get the right hands. There's the QR code.
I always do the same thing. My book, but
I know, because you can never remember, like Zoom mirrors the video,
yes,
but then this one
yes.
doesn't.
Very
And
I'm with you. It's very confusing
it
sometimes.
is. It
Yes.
is. Um, okay, so you said the future is, partnering with other people who have the same mission, essentially. Um, that sounds great. And we do have a chat. Let me see. Oh, Denise said both. It will be live and
That's
recorded.
what I thought. Yeah. Okay, great. There you go.
She's keeping you on track here.
She is. She is.
Larry, this was a great conversation. Anything else that you'd like to share for somebody who is maybe starting out, or maybe they're in a place where they're like, yeah, I think I want to do more than referrals now? Any advice to those people?
I think yes, you have to be thinking about how it well, let me start by saying if you
Yeah.
want to grow your practice, right? If you're
Yeah.
comfortable and you want a lifestyle practice, may not be a great fit, but if you're looking to grow your practice, I think you have to start looking at other areas than just strictly referrals.
Mm,
And you may have one way of doing that that's better than another. So I always recommend, meeting with somebody like you, Callie, to kind of flesh
mhm.
that out and see where it might be a good place to start, because you
Yeah.
don't want to go everywhere at once. It'll
Right.
become very overwhelming and not sustainable. So
Mhm.
figure out where it's going to be best for you to, you know, uh, invest that time and whatever capital you need to invest, and go deep. And you have to be willing to wait. You have to be
Mm.
willing to invest the time. And when, not everything's going to work like it did for us with the joyful,
Yeah. Right.
aspect of things, but, give it time. And if you see it's resonating, lean in. If not, then you
Mm.
could always take a look and see how you might be able to tweak it a little bit and make it better until it's just right. And then when you know it's just right, just lean in. But the
Yeah.
important thing is start today, start building a game plan. We're financial advisors helping people, plan for their financial futures.
Mm.
We should also be planning for our financial futures
Mhm.
and our plans on how to grow the practice. And part of that is marketing.
Yeah.
And, if referrals go away tomorrow, which they're not, but if they start reducing, this is a great way to, keep the pipeline filled.
Yeah. Yes. Great words here from Larry. Everybody, write it down. Thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to picking Denise's brain next week.
Thank you, Callie. Thank you for hosting me. Thank you for hosting us. And,
Yeah.
thank you to the FPA for sponsoring this time that we had. I appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Um, for those joining, quick plug here. If you've launched a podcast, but you're not sure how to grow it, promote it, or turn listeners into real business, check out our newly released podcast promotion course. It's designed for financial advisors and includes everything you need: a proven checklist, a pre-built scheduler on monday.com, so everything's automated. You just have to plan the episode and then it will take you through the next tasks, some swipeable templates, and real-world examples to help your podcast get traction. And then, of course, join us next week with Denise, where we're going to get a behind the scenes peek of how she makes the Mitlin brand run behind the scenes. I think it's going to pair nicely to hear all the execution strategies she has. And if you are watching a recorded version of this, you can still put your questions in the comments. Just make sure to tag me so I see it. That's the @ symbol, KALLI. The rest should pop up because there's not too many people out there who have a name spelled like mine. Until next week, enjoy each day, and then make sure to tell Larry what brought you joy.